Welcome to Undaunted Voices, the podcast where resilience, identity, and transformations take center stage. These are your hosts, Andrea Belalcazar, Mia Love, and Walt Ash. Today, we're taking you on a personal journey, one that explores what it means to rise through challenge, to grow through honesty, and to find strength in vulnerability. If you've ever faced a turning point and wonder what comes next, this conversation is for you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Undaunted Voices, where we share the real stuff resilience, identity, and the moments that shape us. These are your hosts, Andrea Belalcázar, Mia Love, and Wall Ash. Today, we will be hitting a really important topic in the fourth episode of Undaunted Voices. Finally, unmasking, dropping the shield of expectations. Have you ever looked like you had it all together in the outside, but felt like we're hiding behind a mask on the inside? Mia knows exactly what that looks like, feels like. She's masked, she's living authentically, and she's here to help us do the same. Now I'll turn it over to Walt, who will guide today's conversation.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Andrea. Today, our guest is Mia Love. Mia brings over 2.5 decades of experience in education. She's also the founder of Real Freedom with Love, where she helps women professionals step into their full potential. She empowers high achievers to overcome imposter syndrome with their neurospicy brilliance and align their successes with balance and purpose. She's also a TEDx speaker in her talk, Two Ways to Embrace Neurodivergence, which I highly recommend to people. She challenged misconceptions and showed how unmasking and embracing difference can become a powerful strength. She's here today to share her journey of finally unmasking, what it took, what it taught her, and how it's shaping the way she leads and inspires others. So, Mia, let's get started with the title of the episode, Finally Unmasking. What does that mean to you personally?
Unmasking means letting go of today's expectations. And
Nice
one thing
here.
that I want to say about my bio is when I originally worked with my bio, I was still in a phase of masking, so to speak. So I've heard myself introduced a couple of different times. And the thing that I realize about this is everything on here is true. At the time that it was written, I was so focused on only being able to help people that identified the same way that I identify because I was afraid of making a mistake. That's why in my bio it says that I help women entrepreneurs because I was so afraid of not being able to mirror someone's experience or not being able to help someone that didn't think exactly the same way that I thought. And I'm just doing the same thing society did. Now I need to and say that I help individuals. It doesn't matter how you identify. I help individuals because now I'm realizing that you don't have to be a certain way. Just hearing you say that allows me to know that that's a correction. That's a piece of unmasking that needs to happen. That is what it means to me personally, taking every single moment, listening, reflecting, and letting go of the expectations that others have of you and expectations that you have of yourself, constantly evolving, thinking, oh, that last minute self check. Is this truly how you want to show up? Do you even want to show up? That was a huge part of unmasking for me, finding my no, the reasons why and finding how I go if I do go.
That's so great to hear, Mia, as well, because that is something that I really passionately relate to. When I was building programs for people in the company I work for, a lot of the times I was asked for creating programs specifically for some communities, which I'm not saying is necessary, right? The underlying tones of these requests like always ended up being the same requests from different communities. And what I like the message that I would end up sharing with them is, well, we all need the same type of help. So what we want to make sure is we give the same support to everyone so that everybody gets the ability to get it. I really love how you position on masking in sense of this is something that actually is for everyone, not just for specific people. that allows you to scale to levels that you had never imagined. How do you feel that your journey has evolved to be in that position now?
First, I had to learn myself. What was a mask? What was authentic? What pieces of the mask, because it has to come off in layers. In a climate, you don't just go from everything to nothing. You take off layers. You're like, warm in here. Okay, first I'm going to take my hat off. And all right, that's not enough. Now I'm going to take my scarf off. That's not enough. Now the jacket. Now, so it's the same thing. Everything has to come off in layers. So I started, as I became more comfortable, I started removing the layers, and I started moving the places that I was in. And as I removed the layers, other places became safe for me to not have those layers on. That's how the unmasking became. I started changing the people that I was around, and I started educating myself on where I was more comfortable and learning more about the way that my brain thinks. And then through that and those communities, saying, "Hey, guess what? This does not work for me, and this is what I need." Being more comfortable asking for what I need instead of just nodding and being confused or just standing there staring, being stressed out. I started doing it in layers, finding communities, finding the right words, just saying, "For me, this does not work, and this may be the case for someone else."
That self-assessment and that self-reflection, I think, is important for people to remember that not only do you have to take care of yourself and understanding how you feel in certain situations and that others may feel the same way or differently and understanding that, but also being able to share that and being appreciative of how that may be reflected when people look at you. So I know that for years you looked successful on the outside, and you still do, by the way. What did masking look like for you? And what kind of situations when you just talked about that you thought it might be a detriment or it might have cost you?
Gosh, thank you. I appreciate the flowers. It costs a lot. I mean, I honestly think that it costs time, it costs health, it has cost relationships, it has cost some semblance of happiness, it has cost health. The things that I was not giving myself and the truths that I was not living, it has to take away from other parts of you. I'll use I statements. It had to take away from other parts of me. I was holding up this mask and I was trying to stress my way through things. When I came home, obviously, that stress had to be taken out somewhere. At times, that stress was taken out on my household, or at times, that stress was taken out on my health, or at times, that stress was taken out on like habits. I would like overshop or overeat, or if I had that balance, or if I was able to live my authentic self and not burn myself out in these particular arenas or relieve that stress point, I would not have had those other things out of whack in my life. I would have had balance. It has cost a lot. Now that I figured that out, the biggest answer to your question, it cost me my peace. And that's what
Yourself.
I have now that I'm unmasked. I can find peace in the loudest sense. I know what peace feels like, and I'm not willing to compromise it again. I'm not going back to masking. I'm not giving up my peace again.
I have a question for you because that's an ideal for anyone and everyone that is out there listening to our podcast, right? And it's a superpower. It's that is so incredible that like allow us to get to a state of peacefulness that we many of us like strive for. And especially
Agreed.
like if you're a like type A personality that you want to impress everyone, you want to be liked by people, you want to progress and you want to get to the next level. There's always that level of anxiety, right? Like if you're a person like that, right? There's a and you find that in like everywhere you go. Like how do you get to learn to build that inner peace? Because it's not about what's around you; it's about what you choose to do with it, right? So like what would advice would you give to people that are trying to their goal is to get to that place that you're already in, like finding their inner peace?
My advice would be to try a lot of different things first. Try them in community and have someone that is going to be honest with you about how those things are showing up. I ran the gamut. Thankfully, I was fortunate to study Reiki and go to India and do all these different things, right? I was able to hold up the mirror and say, okay, this is working for this portion of my life, but none of those were the answer. I so appreciate the education and the experience that I had because am able to help other people. I still wasn't helping myself. And I realized that I was still redlining my life. I've had someone tap me on the shoulder. My advice would be have an accountability partner. Is that getting you to where you are? If it's not, then let's go back to the beginning and let's try something else. Let's keep trying it until you get it. Let's keep trying it. Not someone just cheer you along. Have somebody that's going to be straight up honest with you and go, this is not it. Let's try this again.
That
And
is
that's gotta be
so
different.
powerful.
Yeah, exactly, and so I could just imagine that this would be in different situations, different ways of handling it, and maybe talking to, like you said, maybe a mentor or somebody that you can talk to in your network to be able to find that moment, and I'm sure that it's gotta be different in different situations, like, there might be a specific time when this may apply, and then there may be another time when you wanna be a little bit more reserved before you unmask. How do you help make that determination on that case-by-case basis?
If you're a professional football player, they may have like a head coach. They depending on your position, there's a coach for that position, and they also have a trainer. That I have a couple of different people. I'm very open about mental health. You have to have something that works for each portion of what you are trying to get to. And don't think that it's a one size fits all because it's also not fair to put that onto one person and have them or that thing be responsible for everything. For example, you want to go to the dentist is not going to do the same thing the orthodontist is going to do. The
Yep.
podiatrist can't do the same thing the chiropractor is going to do. So you have to have the squad of people that's going to keep you in line for all the things that you're looking for. So find them all.
That is so true. Like I can relate so much. The definition of friendships in Colombia is very different in here, right? It's like you die hard person is like everything to you, and or persons. But here I have had to learn that different people serve different purposes for different things on your life, and if you learn that earlier on, you are allowing you to self to be happier and less disappointed because not everybody will give you everything you want. And I think that that helped me with like friendships, even when I was dating or when my husband as well. And I guess the follow up to that is how do you decide like which to whom would you go for what, right? Because like that's important as well as people are learning to build the accountability partner. You don't want to put too much on a person that probably might not be ready for it. How do you find that balance? Who do you go to for what?
I had to learn to listen to hear instead of listen to respond. When I started listening to hear, and that's not just what somebody's saying with their mouth, that's paying attention to their body language. I was able to learn so much more about what I was saying to someone. When I learned more about personality types and learned more about my personality type, the more that you are open and comfortable sharing, people will tell you, especially with the age of social media, people TMI all the way out. So I think social media has taken the guardrails off of people not wanting to give too much information. You can very easily say, hey, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that makes sense. Thank you so much for that point of view. And I think that really resonates with me is also having the bravery to asking for what you need is what I'm hearing, right?
It's gonna happen one way or the other, and I think that if you explain to someone, "I am being myself authentically, and I want to be able to show up for you as who I truly am. So let me be very honest with you about how I feel about this situation," as opposed to masking and showing up and then not having a great time or not having a great experience, and then you become overstimulated and get into an argument about it later.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
So you go from self-awareness for you, and then sharing that self-awareness to others, and then understanding the awareness of others to you. And based on that, you then took those realizations that led to the creation of the Maya MiaLoveCoaching.com site. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so mialovecoaching.com. I am involved in a company that helps other people that's focused on financial freedom. That's still very important to me because it's something that we're not taught in school. What I realized is that I really need to be able to help people get to the root cause. That's just one of those things that people do as a reaction to not being in the space that they need to be in. Let me take a lot of steps back and figure out why things are happening, why people are in particular situations. Self diagnosis is a diagnosis, and it is. It is. I want to say that very clearly. Self diagnosis is a diagnosis. The waiting lists are so long, it can be very expensive. I was able to go through the process to get a diagnosis. Once I did that, I thought, I now have the keys to be able to help other people that either do or do not have a diagnosis. Now, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV. I have gone through a ton of certification processes to be able to help other people walk them through the process and help be a bit of that reflective piece. My particular diagnosis, UDHD, locked an entire world for me. It made me realize that if I had known this way back when, and it's not something that was tested for, it's not something, especially in our community, that would have even been out there. It was a very large pendulum swing. When I got that, I thought I have to share. I went on the largest platform that I possibly could. I went from the website and then used that as a catalyst to build from there.
I would say that you're not a doctor, but you're definitely a knowledge expert. Let me just say that right there. Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
I just kind of wanted to dig a little bit deeper into what you just said. Like you mentioned AUDHD. Can you explain a little bit more to our audiences what that is? Because that's a
Sure. My particular diagnosis is a combination of autism and ADHD. And that's literally your brain being the life of the party and wanting to hide in the bathroom from the party at the same time. I've had to explain to people before that don't try to force the correction. I just need to step away for a minute. Let me step away and find my center and then come back to it. And then I'll be right back. Right now, I'm on the side that needs to go hide in the bathroom. I'll be back.
And you explain
that
that so well. And I've seen some of your talks, and I know that you talk about that, because sometimes people don't understand ADD versus ADHD versus AUD. Yeah, ADHD. And I know you share examples of people who you may or may not know who are public figures who have different conditions that are all in the different parts of the spectrum. So I love when you do that. I know that you were just talking about your business and the opportunity to be able to explain and help with financial freedom and elevating the status quo. And while you're helping women who are already successful find that piece of themselves that you say might be missing or may not feel fulfilled, and being able to understand that some of these different nuances may be there and that it's not necessarily something bad. You just need to be able to identify it and how to go about taking care of it for yourself. How do you go about that approach when you have some of the people that are part of your group?
It depends on what they're looking for. I ask people, "Are you comfortable talking in a group, or is this something that you would like to talk about individually?" From there, I find out whether the people that I'm working with in a group, then I like to find out what you know about your personality. If you've done one of the color tests, I need the individual to be comfortable talking about what happened in the past so that we can find out the origin of what traumas may be coming in and how they may be showing up for them right now. Once we are able to get to that point, I want people to be connected and comfortable being connected to a mental health professional. I am a coach. I'm not a doctor. I can help coach you, I can help connect you, but you also have to have a mental health professional if that's something that you have access to. I have a lot of great resources that I prefer people to. Just being able to be a resource and goes back to listening to hear instead of listening to respond, because I noticed that a lot of people have a playbook when coaching. You have to have a framework when you're coaching people, and you have a playbook when you're coaching a game. This is not a game. This is people's life. I have a framework for understanding and recognizing a direction to go, but I cannot coach people's life with a playbook because you can mess up. You have to have a framework by which to guide people to the next healthy step or a possible direction. I'm here listening to what a person or a group is saying and sharing experiences or helping people navigate the experience so that they have the resources to go in the proper direction. And that's what I feel like my role is as the coach.
Yeah, you make me remind me of something that I heard program at Stanford. There is a difference between a coach and a therapist. Your therapist will help you deal with your past. Your coach will help you deal with the present. That's kind of where you draw the line, and what going back to what we were talking about. Who do you go for? What, right? So that's a good distinction between. And I wanted to ask you too. So, from hearing what you're sharing right now, masking is a coping mechanism for things like imposter syndrome, right? Because that way is how you try to stay alive. As you coach people, what do you advise them to overcome the masking?
Start with a personal story. My story, don't feel like you have to shrink down. Speak your truth, be who you are, step into the room and own that space because you worked to get to that space. You earned that space, you earned that seat, you did the work. No one handed you anything. All of us know as undaunted voices, we were not given anything. May have, our parents ancestors and everything did things to pave the way, but the things that we got, we worked for them. So how dare us not walk into the room with the pride to say we did this, we earned this. We earned this place that we are in right now, and we are going to sit here and we're going to take up the space where I'm going to sit here and I'm going to use both armrests like I'm in the middle seat. I'm very passionate about people on the plane having both armrests when they're in the middle seat. So I'm going to take
I
up
just need
both.
leg room.
Exactly.
I love doing that with customer service.
I'll have to, I'll have to remember all these things as I remember as I'm hosting and talking to somebody who is a 2025 woman to watch by according to Black leaders worldwide. As I talk to people like that and understand the awards, and I know Andrea's got an impressive list too, but I'll try and remember that I'm here for a reason. I know you also talk a little bit about some of your findings and some of your experiences in the TED Talk for 2 ways to embrace neurodivergence. And for most people who have not seen it, I highly recommend it. What inspired the message, and how do you get inspired as you continue with your own podcast that you're starting to put together, the posts that you put on social media and LinkedIn and other places? How did you decide that this was the right moment for you to be able to do that and to do the work that you're doing going forward?
I had been saying to myself for a while that I really want to get this message out. Be careful what you wish for. I kept saying, oh, if I could only have the stage, if I could only get the opportunity to share this information, I'll share it with so many people. This application process came up for the TEDx. I had just finally got my website stabilized and I put the application in for the TEDxing out, but I was also very happy that I finally had the stage. I finally have this red circle where I can share the information. I'm so excited to get to do this. As we're getting closer, they said, "Yeah, you've gotta be off script 3 weeks before," and I'm like, "Excuse me? Off what? Off script?" I said, "I'm sorry. What did you say?" "Off script, memorized." I go, "So there's no little teleprompter? We're just standing there with us and a mic." I am speaking about AUDHD, like, that's the definition of forgetting things in your brain going everywhere, and you want me to stand here on a worldwide stage. Everyone was extremely supportive, like, I had people offering to sit in the front row and hold my pages up for me and drop them if they needed to. It was an amazing opportunity to have that moment to share and to have friends and family. They positioned themselves throughout the theater so that if I needed to look different places, so I didn't like have this deer in headlights. I was so grateful and thankful that I was given the opportunity to share that information on such a wide stage and really just be able to drop the mask publicly, to speak my truth and to talk about things that people needed to hear, that people that think like me.
And you do that really well. I know that when I went to Encore, I was able to listen, not only and be in the front row in case you needed me, and listen in. And I also know the people that lined up to talk to you afterwards because they were inspired by your vision and your knowledge and being able to share that with others, and the empathy that you showed as part of that message too. So I know that you were able to connect to people you and I have talked. How do you think that the whole opportunity to connect from that neurodivergent experience embraces yourself to be able to share that story of unmasking? And how does that all tie together?
To be honest with you, Walt, to go back to end court, it was Friday afternoon and we were in Hawaii.
Friday afternoon. Yeah.
We had been there all week. I'm thinking there is no way that people are gonna show up for this. This will be an opportunity to practice delivery on this talk. I was happy that, Walt was there. When I looked up and I saw the number of people that were in there, and they were, like, all sitting on the floor, we had a great time, like, people weren't walking out, and then when I saw the line of people afterwards that were coming up to talk, then that's when it clicked, and there were so many genuine conversations that happened after that, and so I forgot your question.
No, I was gonna say but I was gonna also say that this was not because Andrea was not there, but this was not a room with that had like tens of people. This probably had a couple hundred people in it, as she was saying, on a Friday afternoon on the last day of the conference, and she nailed it. But I would think I was trying to ask about how embracing neurodivergence connects to your own personal story of unmasking. How do you tie the two together?
I tie them together because I never want anybody to go through what I went through. I held that mask up to the point that I literally had a medical incident, and it took a really long time uh, for science to figure out what was going on. They were like, "Okay, we see some sort of something going on with your heart, but you're not having a heart attack. We see something going on, but we can't really figure out what it is." I am so grateful because I'm one of those people that I practice Eastern medicine and I believe in Western medicine. Reiki, energetic healing, absolutely. And if I fall and break my arm, I don't want you to do Reiki on me. I want a cast and I want some medication to stop the pain. Luckily, I was able to do what I could do to stabilize myself, but I had an amazing primary care physician. She was a woman of color, and she said, "I want you to find a mental health professional woman of color. The 2 of us together are gonna get you together, and we are gonna figure this out before you take another step." Whether it's your kid needing a 504 plan or an IED, or you needing an accommodation at work, or you needing to just have a conversation with your partner. I understand why they do that. I can open the door to some of those things, then I feel like I've done what I was supposed to do. Yeah.
That's right. Andrea, did you have any other questions on this?
No, I would say from your perspective, like you are an advocate, a coach, and you're there for people. You experience it yourself, so you can even relate in at a higher level and empathize with higher level people struggling with this. What would be your advice to people surrounding people with neurodiversity? What would you tell?
I would tell them to find their piece of the 20%. 20% of the population identifies as neurodivergent, and that's only because that's it's I would say find your community, whether that is something that if social media is where you are, there are Facebook groups, there are, all these other platforms. There's all kinds of different platforms. Find a community, whether it's at a library or whether it's at your school. Find a safe space for you to be able to talk to folks about what you're experiencing. Talk to your healthcare professional. If your kid only likes chicken nuggets and plain hamburgers, or even if your spouse likes the same thing, if your partner only likes the same thing or they have the same song on repeat, have a conversation about it. We have AI now. So I'm not saying use AI as your physician, but I'm saying you can ask questions. Most neurodivergent individuals do not want you to make an assumption. That is the most dangerous thing that you can do for us, is to make an assumption. We would rather have you ask the question. Now, be ready for the info dump, because you're not going to get a short answer. If you ask us something, we have an interest-based brain. We are going to tell you the entire thing. We're going to tell you how, why, when, where, the amount, like all the differentials about it and things like that. Because if we're interested in it, we know everything about it. And we would rather you ask than make an assumption. 9 times out of 10, your assumption is going to be very wrong. And then we're going to get on the other side of it. And because we have such a strong sense of justice, that's when that wedge gets driven in between.
I can relate because I have some of those traits too, that at some point I should probably get checked on myself, and I'd have family members that are going through that as well. And so understanding how to categorize it, I know that some of those traits were not directly me, but I know that it's me And so, for example, I think these shirts today just have different colors, and that's what I basically do. So I can completely understand. This all sounds like how you're sharing it the way that you coach and the way that you lead today, and understanding how people need to listen. Like I was thinking as a sort of a spin off of what they said in Hamilton, talk less, smile more, but also listen more. And also understanding that if you want to be able to help, you have to be ready to listen to the different levels of communication. It's not just a, hey, how are you question and then just kind of tune out. You need to be able to understand that there's different levels and that they're willing to share, and understanding that you not just listen, but also learn as part of that experience as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's
Okay.
hereditary. That's what, what I've researched, and sometimes that's difficult for people to get over neurodiversity on some level somewhere down the road. There is a hereditary chain to it, and it's hereditary brilliance. That's why my podcast is called Brilliantly Wired, because it is a level of brilliance.
Was there anything else you wanted to share about your podcast?
It's something that I had been sitting on for a really long time, and so I finally decided to stop sitting on it and get it out there.
Where can people find it? Cool, cool. And do you mind sharing a little bit more about what podcast is about?
Well, it's called Brilliantly Wired Podcast with Mia Love, and you have to write Brilliantly Wired Podcast. Make sure you write Brilliantly Wired Podcast. It's about the way that our brains are brilliantly wired. I talk about how we move in friend groups, how we move in social situations, about the brilliant wiring that is a neurodivergent brain and how it shows up in that 20% in a world that was navigated and built for the 80%, which is very interesting.
Nice. And I have a question. So we talked about like understanding neurodiverse people, right? How to make sure like we are communicating and from a neurodiverse perspective, getting to learn about yourself more and understanding like what works for you, what not, and communicating. How do we bridge the gap in between accountability and how do we also because being neurodivergent is a gift as well, right? As much as it is a differentiator. Can you share about like how can we help each other to be more accountable as well as a highlight and take advantage of that the brilliance of brilliance as well.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things to talk about. When individuals are open to asking the question and recognizing the talents of neurodiverse individuals within their teams or within their families. That's where you expand on it. When people are working in groups, they talk about having people work in their best and highest use. When you learn how to use the talent of the neurodiverse individuals on your team, it's going to allow you such a different perspective. We know where all of the emergency exits are. We have clocked everything in the room at the moment that we walked in. So if you learn the things that the neurodivergent mind pays attention to, allow allow the neurodivergent individuals in your team to work in the area that they thrive so that they no longer have to survive in the areas that are uncomfortable. And then that frees up your neurotypical talent to do the things that they thrive in. If you start to learn more about it and start asking questions and being open to the solution and not saying, but this is what everyone does, you are going to unlock talents that you didn't even know were there. You're going to start learning more about your team, and you're going to have such a well functioning, well-oiled machine, if we wanna call it that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's just super, like, I relate a lot with what you're saying because I've had my own journey with neurodiversity. My little niece, I've been there in her journey since she got diagnosed when she was like 5, 6 years old until now that she's like, now she's 14 and learning to like be there for her has been different because there are so many stereotypes on like what education should be like and how you should be treating the kids. And there is on top of that like the cultural aspects of like how people perceive things that they don't even know can be different, right? And I think that one of the things I've learned from my perspective is you need to get to know the person to understand what they're good at and what they're not, right? And then and rather than push, I mean, definitely there's that level of proficiency they need to get to in the things they're not so good at so that they can overcome other challenges too, to learn about adversity. I think that's very important. But at the same time, like flourishing them on the areas that they're better at is really good. And I really saw that when my niece actually run for school resident at her class. And she's like the epiphany of excitement. She gets everybody excited in the room. That's one of her things. Like she sometimes would come into my meetings and she's like, "Hi everyone," and everybody would just light up. That's just how much of a sunshine she has. That's one of the things that made me realize. I mean, that among many other things made me realize this, like how special she is and how big she can get if she gets the right level of support. If people gets to know her at the level that we know her, right? And that's one of the things that for me this topic is so important because she's part of the light of my life, of my family's life, right? And seeing her being in her brilliant self.
Right.
So yeah, and
Yeah.
I was just like, thank you so much for this conversation. This has been really enlightening for
That's
me
amazing.
and
Thanks for sharing
validating.
that. Yeah. So I know we talked a little bit about the podcast. We talked about the TED Talk. We talked about MiaLoveCoaching.com. Is there anything else that you wanted to say today, Mia?
I think that wraps it up. I mean, I take on all the opportunities that I can to be able to share information like this.
Even
Thank you, Walt, and thank you for moderating today. Yeah, thank you for sharing your story and your truth with us today. It's incredible how you have evolved from where you started to where you are now, and how impactful you are to everyone. And to our listeners, if this conversation resonates with you, share this episode with someone who may need it. And remember, the world doesn't need to be the polished version of you; it needs the real you. My name is Andrea, and this has been Undaunted Voices with today's conversation led by Walt. Until next time, keep showing up authentically and writing your own story. Thank you, everyone.
thanks, everybody.